subscribe to. A few months back there was a video on a General Electric clock radio from a friend of mine who owns a auto repair shop, and it kind of hangs out in his waiting room and keeps the customers occupied, and he listens to sports and news on it, and you know, people like to see a working old radio. In that video the problem ended up being silver mica disease in the IF cans. Well, I guess one of his customers saw that radio and they really liked it, and he said, yeah, I have a friend who works on old radios and gets them working, and the customer gave him this radio, and he kind of likes this better than the General Electric because that's a clock radio and this is just a straight up simple radio. And I asked him if he plugged it in, and he said yes, and I said, well, what did it do? Did it hum or what? And he said, yes, it hummed and it smoked. And I said, bring that right over. I want to do a video on that. We like things that smoke over here. And I'm not being facetious or sarcastic. Smoke is good. Another thing I'd like to bring up is for a beginner in electronics, someone who maybe watches these TV, record player, repair videos, all this stuff. If you're new to restoring old electronics, this is where you want to start. There's plenty of videos on, this is called an All-American 5 because it's 5-tube radio. These are super common. You can pick them up pretty cheap. And if you're just getting into electronics for the first time, maybe your first recap, something like that, and you want to start on something to get some experience with soldering and working with old stuff, get one of these. Plenty of information, universal as could be, and you could get your feet wet with this. And if you do let all the smoke out of it, it's not going to be a big regret. So let's take a look at this. It's just a very simple, very basic All-American 5. Packard bell was made right here in Los Angeles. The back is missing, but the coil antenna is still in there. And I'm sure a lot of my regular viewers are sick of these radios. I don't blame you, but if I get one and I'm in the mood to make a video on it, I'm going to do it. So at least we got the coil antenna here. And unfortunately it looks like it's broken, but we'll have to ohm that out. There could just be a secondary winding in here kind of woven in with the main winding as for an external, but we can make a cardboard back or masonite back. You can see it had cardboard, and yeah. So these were, most all of these were licensed by RCA, 35C5, 35W4, 50C5, 6BE6, 6BA6, 12AV6. So that's a tube complement on these things. So let's fire it up and see what it does. This looks as simple and basic as could be. There's no model number, so we're not going to need a schematic. Not going to get a schematic. You could probably go on Wikipedia and type in All-American 5, and you're going to get a schematic that's going to be close enough for you to fix it. That's how common these things are. Okay, so the first thing we want to do who sees the problem already? Who can spot the problem? So the first thing we want to do is pull it out of the chassis and do a quick visual inspection. And I will zoom in on the problem. That right there used to be a capacitor, and this is the across the line capacitor. And what I mean by that is it's across the line. So you can see our electric cord comes in here, our line cord. One side of it goes here, which goes over to the capacitor. The other side comes up here to the power switch, which goes to the capacitor. Now that right there was probably one of these type of capacitors, one of these Bumblebee Black Beauties, and they short, and this is how they fail. And it's kind of interesting that I don't see any of the pieces of this thing, so I don't know where did it go. And look at here what just fell out of the radio. I didn't see it, but there it is. So at least we got a value on it, but this is not critical. So it's a 00047? Yeah, yes, 047. 473. Yeah, 047. Yellow, purple, red would be 0047. Yellow, purple, yellow would be 47. So it's an 047, 0.047. It's not critical. Okay, we're going to do a dim bulb fire up here. I haven't removed the capacitor or anything. I kind of do this stuff ghetto and unsafe. That's what makes it cool. So here's what I'm going to do. Okay. Ghetto and dangerous as it can get. So this is my line cord coming in. This is a 40 watt incandescent bulb. Don't try and do this with a CFL or an LED. You need to match the wattage here to the wattage here. Generally these radios are about 30 watts or so, so a 40 watt bulb is about right. And I've just put the bulb in series. I've done it as unsafely as possible because that's more entertaining. So let me plug it in. Let's see what happens. Wow, that is stiff and frozen. We can lube that up. Now the idea for this light bulb is that the light bulb being in series with the radio, if there's any shorts in the radio or anything like that, the filter capacitor shorted, it needs to reform, whatever, the light bulb is going to take the hit. So it's going to current limit the amount of electrons that can flow through the radio. If the radio is shorted, like if this capacitor shorted, the light bulb will just come on. So here we go, and yeah, I lubed that up and it's real nice. So I'm going to turn it on. And that's what we should see, because when the filaments are cold, the resistance is lower. So you turn it on, and as the tubes warm up, the light bulb will dim down. That's correct. That's what we should see. This is like a poor man's Variac / fuse. Okay, this is a very common failure mode for this type of radio. We've got an across the line capacitor that's failed, and we've got a bad filter capacitor just to start. The sensitivity seems lackluster, but without the filter you're going to have low voltage anyway because it's only a half-wave rectifier. So we need to start with filter capacitors, get rid of all of these Bumblebee Black Beauty looking things. So this needs to go, that one right there needs to go, this needs to go, and that needs to go. Yes, I did unplug it. And then from there, the other failure thing that's starting to pop up a lot is the capacitors in the IF cans. But we don't know who the supplier was and if they're going to be defective. So First thing that needs to go, replacing this will get rid of the hum, and then the rest of these are just, they're already blowing up. So it's interesting, they're all .047s too. And Packard Bell used disc capacitors for all the rest of this, which is good because they don't go bad. So this is your atypical All-American 5 radio failure mode. This is like by the book. There's a million videos on YouTube. Everybody's sick of watching these videos. I'm sure most of the people have already clicked off of this, but this is kind of a video for the beginner. So next thing we'll do is do these caps and then go from there. This has got two capacitors in it. It's got a 20 and a 40 microfarad, so the yellow is 40 and the red is 20. They don't make 20 and 40 anymore. You can either get 10, 22, 33, or 47, 68, or 100. The right way to do this, if you were ordering, would be to order a 22 and a 47. So, of course, the two negatives tie together and go to the black, and then the 47 would go to yellow, the 20 would go to red. This is not that critical to me as someone who does this all the time. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put in there whatever I got. This is really beautiful that this has got these nice long wires on it. So we just cut them off. We can put a terminal strip in or just tack the capacitors in there somewhere. It's not critical. This is there's no real specifics to these radios. The tolerances are so great on the components. You can put whatever in these things. It's like these capacitors, you could put up anything from a 0.1 to a 0.022. It just doesn't matter. I just thought I would take a second, even though I don't need it, and look through the Beatmans. And this appears to be it right here. Packard Bell 531, 532, 533. And that sure does look like the chassis to me. There's a few little differences here. They call the capacitors, well, they have the electrolytics as 250 microfarads here. I guess it's possible that that thing maybe was replaced at one time. I don't know. They also call the across the line capacitor here a 0.05, and one of the other ones is the AVC filter, that 0.05, and then we should have one other 0.05 in here. Wonder if this is at 5K. Although you would think 5K would be 0.005. No, actually, that's the third one. I just looked at the radio. The third one is this one right here, a 0.15. And that basically isolates chassis ground from the line. So it's kind of weird how they have that displayed on here, but this is the radio for sure. So we've got a 0.15 Bumblebee, a 0.05, which is a 0.047 there, and then this is the one right here that blew up. The other thing I want to take a look at is the filter capacitor comes out of the tube through a 68 ohm. Then the filtration is in two stages with a 1K in between them. And this 1K looks kind of torched in that radio. Here's a 68. It's measuring 56. That's good enough for me. Here's the 1K, which all the bands look like they're burnt off of it. It's measuring 975. 974. That's well within tolerance for me. Alright, this is a 47 microfarad 450 volt I just clipped it in there. You can hear the difference here. You know what, let's drop the hammer on this. Forget the 100 microfarad. This is a 15,000 microfarad. And as you can hear, this gets rid of 100% of the hum. That's the volume wide open.
Protons.com.
And I gotta say that the sensitivity is extremely lackluster, especially for at night. Here it's horrible. It's deaf. Well, it picks up my classics American Frank Sinatra station. It could be a lot to... So, I don't know. Could also be IF transformers or a weak tube. I guess I could go through and test the tubes, but I would really expect a lot more from this. You know, without me having to hold on to it. And I did confirm that this extra winding in here was just a loop tied in there to for an external antenna. Yeah, very poor sensitivity, and that's not due to the capacitors. Okay, there's my American Standards channel. Toe tapping music. And I can't even get that on here. Okay, so the American Standards channel's right below the religious music.
Found me just in time and changed my life.
Okay, I finally found it. Boy, what a pain in the ass.
In other words, darling,
Real poor performance. Really poor performance. Garbage performance. Alright, I looked up Packard Bell 531 and 532 in the SAMS book, and it comes up to this SAMS right here. And this is definitely the radio for sure. And it's from 1954. And the interesting thing about this is, even if you look at the photo fact, it shows those Black Beauty capacitors in there, and that's definitely it too. And what it shows here is it shows 50 microfarads. So somebody clearly put the wrong capacitor in this thing at one time. Would a 20 and a 40 work? Yes, they would, but they would be under, so there probably would be a slight amount of hum. You always want to go over with capacitors, not excessively over. I mean, me going to a 12,000 is puts this tube right here under a great amount of stress when you turn it on, because it's got to pass the current to charge up that capacitor. But this is definitely the set, and I can show you the 532. Here's the 532. So this is most likely the same exact schematic. It's just in a different package to get the clock radio in there. The layout's just a little bit different. Let's see. What do we got here? Yep, we got 50 microfarads. It's the same set, it just has the radio in it. So it is a Packard Bell 531. I'll have to write that on there with a pencil.
Music and passion were always the fashion at the Copa. Don't fall in love.
Well, I gotta say, we have this new, actually I think it's been, the format changed from classical to this American Standard stuff. Looks like January or so, but I gotta say, it's actually made AM radio worth listening to, kind of, just for the cheese factor, if nothing else. So we've redone the capacitors, all but one, and I did not do it to specification, so that will probably start the cruise bot twerko-quirculating, and some people hyperventilating that I didn't use capacitors that were to exact specification, but we recycled, so maybe that will get the greenies all excited. And I just pulled the parts off of this TV board. Let's go over what I did here. So the capacitor that was blown up there, the AC line capacitor, I used the AC line capacitor off of the TV, which is the proper style AC rated safety capacitor. And for the what is that called? The AVC filter, the AGC filter, that's one that goes bad. I used just the proper value I found in the TV. For the filters, I used two that looked pretty in the TV. They're both Nichicon, good quality caps. They tested dead on. And instead of 250s or 247s, one of them is a 270 and the other one is a 220. So I'm a little bit over there, but it, like I said, it really doesn't matter. The only issue that bigger capacitors could cause is a surge that would blow the rectifier tube up, but that's not going to happen. We got limiting resistors in here, and we also have a it's just not going to happen. If a 15,000 didn't blow it up, 220 isn't going to blow it up. So we're fine with these, and they're silicone down, and you can see I tied the two negatives together there at the bottom, and then I got the 270 connected to red and the 220 connected to yellow. So all I got to do is this one here, and this is a 0.15, and this basically goes from the line to the chassis so that the metal part is isolated from the line through a capacitor, which, okay, yeah, right, whatever, it's still going to give you a buzz if you're wet. But I want to change this one with the proper safety capacitor, because theoretically if that one was to short, it would dump full connected line voltage onto this thing. This way the shock is limited through the capacitor. The other thing I notice is that there is a very specific tune to this antenna. And I'll try and show you what I mean. Now, whether I can dial that in with this right here is yet to be seen. So you can see that adjusting this is kind of like adjusting this, although it seemed like there was a much clearer peak with this in and this down. So I need to get this glued to a piece of cardboard on the back of this thing so that I can align it, and that might wake it up.
Some starry night when her kisses make you tingle, she'll hold you tight and you'll hate yourself for being single.
We went away and I thought I'd die, but I didn't. And when I didn't, that all there is that all there is?
I think they should take every depressed person and lock them into a room and just put that song on repeating over and over and over. Anyone with suicidal thoughts or mental health issues, just put them in a room and let that song just play over and over and over and just see what happens. All right. Close that all the way. Frequency 455 kilohertz. We'll crank the AM modulation up here, or an internal modulation. Then let's crank up our power. Now, I have a feeling this has silver mica disease or is developing it. Not that I'm hearing any static, but I want to document what I'm doing here, so when this radio comes back I can put these things back before I recap the IF transformer. So let's see. So that one was about a quarter turn clockwise. This one was 3 full turns clockwise. Boy, those capacitors are way off in there. Okay, quarter turn clockwise, 3 full turns clockwise. No wonder why the antenna sensitivity seems so bad. That was about on. Come on. That was about on. Boy, this one was way off. And that's silver mica disease. The capacitors are drifting, so the alignment's off. So that IF alignment woke this thing up immensely. A lot. 20, 30 dB or more. And yeah, that kind of indicates that the capacitors in those cans are starting to go. So, but you know what's interesting about this new standard station? No commercials. No commercials. And it's our FM classical station. It's actually the HD3 of the FM classical station they're rebroadcasting on AM. So it's commercial free. I don't know how they're doing it.
For my drinks and tips, but most of the time I spend behind these county bars. You see, son, I drink some. Lord, when he shook his head.
The other thing is the IF alignment got rid of a lot of distortion in the audio. Before it sounded like crap. Now it's way better.
Mr. Bojangles, Mr. Bojangles.
And I thought I had cut that square. I don't know. I must have pulled to one side in the paper cutter. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The tape is just there to hold it temporarily. I glued it, siliconed it there. But, and yes, I did leave this gap around here for the heat to escape. The original one probably had holes cut in it. I think it's supposed to do that. I don't think it's supposed to get stronger when you put your hand near the antenna, but I don't know. I'm going to let it run for another day or so, and we'll see if the balloon is still beautiful or if it develops mylar balloon disease in the IF transformers.
Castle where the roses bloom, Molly and me, and the baby makes three. We're happy in my blue heaven.
Okay, day number 2, and
배우라고 밝혔습니다. 위키리크스가
Great songs, great singers, unforgettable.
sure everyone's getting sick of this station. I haven't yet. In fact, it has really good sound quality on a good radio. Not that this is not a good radio, but you know, a AM radio with a decent speaker. Anyway, day number 2, I'm not really quite happy with the way this is performing, and I think that could be due to a weak tube, or more than likely the IF transformer capacitors are drifting and failing and gonna go into silver mica disease here pretty quick. So I'm gonna let it run for another day and we'll see what happens. Oh, I wanted to check the drift, meaning I got it on the station. So I'll let it run, and there'll probably be a little bit of drift as things heat up and the plates expand on the capacitor and capacitors drift and that. But yeah, I want to let it run for the day, and we'll see how much it drifts. So we'll come back in the afternoon and see how far off from the station it is.
With music from the Great American Songbook, this is Unforgettable. AM 1260, KBOQ Beverly Hills, and 105.1 FM, KKGO HD3, Los Angeles. Just you know why. Unforgettable.
All right, well, the Rat Pack rolls on. I think I can put the wrap on this. It's pretty much getting dark outside, and it's been running now for 2 days. I'm not real happy with the performance on this. I think it could be the IF transformer capacitors, and yes, they are transformers with a defined peak. Or the fact that this antenna is jacked up. I've done the best I could with it, but I'm not going to stress over it. I'm not 100% happy with this. And it has nothing to do with the capacitors I put in it. Like I said, it's either the antenna or the IF capacitor. So more to come later. Thanks for spending an hour with me.